That is it for me. Now I'm going to turn it over to Deedee Wills.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really, really excited to be here. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll get ready to go. Okay, so we're going to talk about student-led center activity. And one of the things that I love about Boom is it really does allow us to hand over some of that responsibility. So you're in the right place if you're getting ready to start Boom Learning for Centers. Maybe you've never tried them before. I'm going to give you some tips on how to make it work a little smoother for you. If you've already started Boom Centers, but you have some questions, no problem. I got some answers for you, hopefully, or the ladies, find people who are on here as well can help you. But if you already have like a well-oiled machine and you're just looking for a few new ideas, hopefully I'll give you some of those as well. So we're going to look at the management, some management ideas, some organization. We're going to look at what Boom decks are and the learning management system that's behind it. And then I'm going to show you a couple of ways that I've created some decks so that we can really have students become a little bit more independent. It's like multiplying your presence. So one of the things that I always kind of start off, whether I'm talking about a technology center activity or a paper pencil game-like activity, is that I've always had 2 students to a center, a learning center. Because when we have 3, we tend to have less learning happening when we're playing games or something like that. So I like to have 2 students to a center. Now, this is a really old board of mine. And at the time, I only had 4 iPads. And I didn't have a computer that was reliable. I had enough. It was one that would make me crazy. So I only had 4 iPads. And so I only had like 1 rotation. And then I had the other set of 2 iPads that I kept a small group. Since then, of course, we've had so many grants and those types of things where we do have sometimes some iPads. So if you could maybe put in the chat, let me know if you currently have iPads that you're using in your classroom or some kind of device that would allow you to run these technology on there. That would be great for me to know. And then I'm also kind of interested if you could let me know if you are already doing Boom decks, or if this is something you're just kind of checking out to see if this is something you might be interested in adding to your kind of repertoire of centers. So that would be interesting. I'll check those answers in just a few minutes, but 2 students to a center. And then if they're meeting with me for that day, I just slide a meet with teacher right in front of their pocket, the activity they were going to do, and then they're going to come and meet with me instead. We also want to make sure that there is a specific place that students go to work. If you've ever worked in kindergarten before, you probably know that there is some kind of like free spiritness. They're kind of not used to being in school where they need to go. And so I always had a designated spot. So if they had a certain center they were going to go to, and it was, let's say, puzzles and games, they went to a certain spot, but I had a designated spot for them to go for iPads. What I didn't want to have is for them to pick it up and then walk around the room, and all of a sudden we've wasted some time. So I have a designated spot for them to go for that activity. Another thing I want to share with you is a tip that I have for transitions. Apparently they're mowing the grass right outside. Hopefully it's not distracting. So transitions. So when we finish one center and we're ready to move on to the next center, I always had them, I always put on music to do that transition. Make it really short, make it really quick and zippy. And that's a great way for you to find extra minutes in your day, because students aren't spending time, slowly cleaning up. That would be one thing that would like make me lose my mind. One of the things that I do now is I work with schools all over the country. I go in and I help find some solutions. So I go in, and one of the things that teachers often say is there's never enough time. And I completely agree. The plates are very full. But when I'm observing center time and it's time for students to clean up, it kind of looks like this. They have like a bell, or they have like a magic wand, or they say, boys and girls, let's clean up, or a timer goes off, right? And you watch students and they're just sort of, kind of going slowly. They're finishing, they're slowly putting things away, right? And that transition time could be 3 or 4 minutes long. Other teachers might put a song on, but the song is really long. It's like a cleanup song that has like 52 verses. And if you watch the students, they don't start to clean up until they get to that last few minutes. of that song, or the last few seconds of that song. And one of the things that I always kind of think about is when I'm having a moment in my classroom, or I'm being that teacher I never wanted to be, the teacher who's like, clean up, you're like losing your mind because they're not cleaning up and you've got to move on to the next thing. There's got to be a solution to that. And so mine has to keep those songs very short. So very simply, when it was time for them to clean up, I would put on a song. It would be like a minute and a half long, and they had to kind of beat the clock, clean everything up, and be on the carpet before the song was over. So it was like a fun way to get them moving and cleaning up. They knew that the song was going to be short. And if they made it in that amount of time, then we added a piece of Mr. Potato Head. And then we had a full Mr. Potato Head. We had, we had a reward, a whole class reward. So just make it fun, but also make it quick, because if you give them 5 minutes, it's going to take them 5 minutes. If you give them 3 minutes, it's going to take them 3 minutes. In my kindergarten class, we could clean up and all be ready to go within, I think the shortest amount of time was like 42 seconds. It was a sight to behold. So if my class can do it, I know that other students can as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is, before we get into the boom decks, is to talk about expectation for center times. Again, whenever I find myself being that teacher I never ever wanted to be, where I'm like, it's too loud in here, or I'm being kind of crabby, or I'm like, you guys know what to do at center time, right? Then it tells me I need to make a procedure that's really, really clear for students. So, when I first started teaching kindergarten, I thought, well, I'll go over how to run centers and, how we are supposed to act at centers. And we'll do that for 6 weeks. And after that, they'll know what to do. No, if I don't review this on a continual basis, I turn into that teacher I never wanted to be. I'm that one going, it's too noisy in here, or I start to see some things that are really frustrating. So make sure that you have a way to review the procedures of things exactly that you want to do, like the one that says literacy stations. There's also a voice level chart. I'm sure most people have those, but don't just put them in your room. Make sure that you review those. And I just do it very quickly before we start. I do it during our math center time, or I'll do it during the literacy center. But every day, I'm not lying when I'm telling you, every day I would go over that chart. I would say, really quick, we're getting ready to start centers. Let's review what it's supposed to look like. We use a level 1 voice, right? And they say yes. And then we get started very quickly. We're going to stay in one place. We're kind and we share. And we use reading or writing words. If it's a math one, I'll say math words. And then we clean up neatly and completely. It literally takes that long. It's not very long at all, but we just want to make sure that we are reviewing those things. A couple other things that are an option for you. If you are having a class that's kind of noisy, you can have some of these kind of apps, which are nice. There's Bouncing Ball, Class Dojo, or Too Noisy. Those are a couple of different ones that are out there. I tended not to use that. I used the expectation. I asked my students to, make sure that they were on track, and that seemed to work pretty good for me. I'm going to get into the organization because, like I said, I get around a lot. That sounds bad. I move around to a lot of classrooms, and I've seen a lot of classrooms. And sometimes I see where like devices just are, honestly, like my desk. You can't see it right here, but this is like a rat's nest going on right here. It's like a hot mess where you can't see behind the camera. It's behind the camera for a reason. But it's really easy for cords to get tangled, or things to be put away incorrectly, or things to be disorganized. And so I went and gathered some pictures off of the World Wide Web, and I'm sharing them with you. Hopefully one of these might give you an idea, but this is just a bamboo wooden dish rack where somebody has have their iPads, or these look like maybe Chromebooks or something like that, where they have them lined up and then they have numbers on there. Depending on your grade level, this might be something that works really well for you. What I would do if you're in a primary grade is I would want to make sure that you have a landing spot. So if I take out the 5 underneath there, I would want to have a 5 so students would know where to place it when they were done, right? Let me check really quick. I want to make sure, Christy, you have 8 iPads, half the district, and you have from Donors Choose is a great way if you can. We have some people with 6, and that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to keep on going here. This is another one that was like, I loved it. So have you seen these magazine racks? If you go to like Home Goods, like I'm there every weekend. If you go to Home Goods you can find these wooden magazine racks, and it's just laid down on its back, sort of, right? And then you just drill holes so that you have a place for the cords to go. And then you could have that as your iPad rack. I would imagine you could get 8 in there very easily. It's nice and sturdy. It's kind of cute. I think it's kind of cute. You could paint it to match your classroom. You repaint it if you need to, if that's something that's important to you. But I really liked how this is something very functional. You could have the cord and the back, and then students could pull it out, unplug it, and use it. I thought that was a really functional solution. Here's another one that, of course, the colors make my heart happy. It's a dish rack. But what I want to show you is how this person has put the power strip and attached it to the side. I love that with zip ties, because oftentimes I see that kind of loose, and it's really easy for things to just become, again, kind of like this rat's nest. And so we don't want to have that happen. So I love how that's there. And then the other thing I would say is with those cords, you can, girls wear those, their hair bands, they're little rubber kind of protected, if I wanted to put my hair up, I would wrap it with that, right? Not a scrunchie, but like the smaller ones, right? And you may want to do something with that cord to make it really short, wrap it around and around so that you don't have a big tangled mess. That's the stuff that makes everybody crazy, right? We don't want to do that. I loved this idea for home screen. Amy Grosbeck had this as a suggestion. And so she has the picture of herself saying it's number 1, number 2, or number 3. I thought that was a really cute. You just take a picture and make it the home screen. The other thing that you could do, if each student has their own device, you could take a picture of their face and make that their home screen. So they would know, hey, I've got the right one, or I don't have the right one. I would do that in kindergarten, where I would be taking a picture of maybe 4 students were sharing a device, right? And then make a collage and then make that the home screen. Whatever you want to do in that respect would be great. But maybe have some picture color, depending on the grade you're working with, to kind of demonstrate, which one's which. I think that would be a great, like a second clue. You can certainly number them. All of that's great, but this is going to be something that's going to be hard to miss if they have the wrong one. And this one right here, I thought was gorgeous, but a couple things to consider. If you have a student who is colorblind, this would be challenging for them. So I would probably put the colors, but I'd also probably put a number on there just so that we would have that set up. But this is done with washi tape. And what I love is that they have color coded the spot where it to come back to. The device is color coded and the cord is color coded. So I've kind of loved all of that. It really helps to show kind of where everything lands. And it looks like it's very, you're not going to have the things being mixed up. So I loved that. That's a lot of devices. Here is kind of another idea that I saw. If you are in a primary classroom, well, I don't know, I wouldn't say just a primary classroom, but I'm not sure if these 2 pictures actually go together. They weren't, there wasn't a source when I found these pictures, but oftentimes we'll see, it's sort of like I think it's a paper organizer or maybe you would have mailboxes back in the day when we would have mailboxes for students, but there'd be enough that you could put those iPads on there. And then on the back side, you can see kind of how it's all been kind of connected. So I don't know if you would have that level of a power port, but you can certainly connect a power strip there. And I think that might be a great way to kind of manage that hot mess that's usually, the back of devices. But I really liked how those were organized. It's nice and neat. For me, this would be a great primary way of doing it. Probably what I would do is I would use that washi tape along the edge of the device, right? So the edge that we're seeing, attach the color also to the cord where they would connect it, and then have the color of where that's supposed to go. I think that would work really, really well. Let's see. I'm just checking in to make sure you guys are good with the questions. All right. So what are Boom decks or Boom cards or Boom learning? I have to tell you, they're kind of amazing. And I am of that generation where technology is the devil. Like I I'm just a little resistant to change. And so when people were talking about boom decks, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but I'm going to stick to what I know. And when everything kind of shut down for the pandemic, we really were looking for different ways that we could bring technology to students at home in an easy way. And Boom seemed like another option. But when I really started looking at it, it's completely unique. It is really unlike anything else I've ever seen. And what's key here is that self-checking for that learning. That is the key. So why do teachers love them? Because it's paperless. This is actually a picture from my classroom. This is center work that's been like thrown on there, right? You just paper everywhere. Paper is, spending time at the copy machine, that sort of thing. And then what do I do with this paperwork afterwards? Am I going to correct it all? I mean, I have a system that I use. We're not going to go into that because I still do use paper and pencil. But do we need to use paper and pencil for everything? I believe that we do not. And I'm going to kind of talk a little bit more about that. We love Boom cards because they're super engaging. So when students engage in learning through play, the amount of time they're exposed to and involved with learning is doubled. So we know that engagement is what turns on the brain. It makes us awake, become awake. When they see something that's new, like novelty, right? When we see something that's novel, it's why teachers wear silly hats and, dress up on special days. But that novelty is something that's part of the way that we're made, right? So back in the caveman days, when we saw something new, we were like, ooh, there's something new. Am I going to eat it or is it going to eat me? We pay attention to those things that are brand new. And so what I love about Boom decks is that when they're doing these activities, everything is new and unique. There is always, very rarely do you see something that is like, oh, I'm looking at the exact same thing that I saw yesterday. So this is novelty is just built in and it feels like a game. Teacher time. Y'all, nothing will make me angrier than that picture on the right. Like I sometimes I feel like I'm going to snap when I get it's always when you don't have time, right? You have to go make these copies really quick and your kids are coming down the hall and all of a sudden you get that. And you're like, okay, is anybody here? Can I run out of here? But the paper jams, the running out of toner, all of those things, coming in early so you can make copies. If you can eliminate some of that time, it's going to make your life easier. I'm not sure about you, but I have 4 of those laminators at home. I have 4 because when I'm doing centers, they're slow. And so I kind of run like a, I don't know, like shuffling cards, put one on each, come back. But I would spend my weekends laminating center activities and then cutting them out and then putting them in a bag. And then, hours. I mean, Netflix, Sunday afternoon shows, all of those things was why I'd be watching and doing this. And I still like to laminate. That warm feeling is nice, but do I have to laminate everything? Do I have to spend all of my time printing? I don't even have the picture of the ink cartridge. So if you can kind of eliminate some of those things and all you have to do is go, oh, okay, I want to take this activity, boom, 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 boom. That center activity is set up. It's golden. So you will save a lot of time if you start to use some of these technology like Boom is a great one. The other thing that's great is it streams on multiple devices. So we love Boom because you can use it on a laptop, on a tablet, or on the smart board. So there's lots of opportunities where you can use it. If you don't have an iPad and you have a smart board, turn that into a center activity. Have 2 students working on that together. That would be a great option for you if you're having students work together. You could have 2 students work on something. It's just great learning. It will change how you do some of the reporting and what you know from the reporting, but you still have great learning. Or if you have some laptops, couple things that you might try to do as well. If you don't have technology, here's a couple options for you. I use this for iPhones, but you could do the same thing with iPads. Sometimes people have devices that they're not using anymore. Maybe they have a laptop at home that doesn't have enough memory for them. So they have that. I have one in my closet right now. It doesn't have enough. I meant storage space, not memory. And so I have it in my closet. So send a note home to parents to say, hey, do you want to donate some of these things? I did it for old iPhones and it was fantastic. All you have to do is make sure you're connected to the internet. So if you have an old iPad, you may be able to use, if parents have an iPad that they're not using anymore, maybe doesn't have enough storage for all of their things, then you can maybe use it for yours. So see if they have some that you can donate. That's a great way to get some devices. Okay. Why do we love Boom Decks? Because there's a bunch of people who have made centers already for you. So you can search by grade level. You can search by subject, topic, theme, paid or free. So if you go to somebody's store and you're like, hey, that's me, by the way. But if you go there and you sort, you can sort it from low to high and see what kind of free things do they have in there. It's a great way to try it out. So we love that. Once you buy a deck, it's yours for life. It's not like at the end of the year, you have to buy it again or something like that. It's yours. So that's wonderful. We also love Boom because you can assign it a couple of different ways. So it's really easy for you to assign it. You can also sort your activities for things that you purchased or things you self-published. So you can assign it directly in Boom, or you can assign it through Hyperplay. So if you have Google Classroom or Seesaw or Microsoft Teams or something like that, you can share a link, and it's a quicker process. It's a little less on the front end. There is some trade-offs. I'm going to share kind of some of those trade-offs, but those are some of the things that I think make it really easy. I mean, on the weekends, you could just sit there and you can assign things very simply. It doesn't take a whole lot of work. So there's this fast play or fast pin link. One of the things that is great about that is that students don't need to log in order to use it. So it makes it very simple. It was also really a good thing that we shifted to quickly when things shut down. You know, ideally, when students need to use technology for distance learning, they would have had some experience with it. But oftentimes in kindergarten, we don't have that kind of experience. And so teachers were all of a sudden March going like, oh my gosh, I'm sending these activities. They've never used it before. They can't do another login. Very stressful. So using that fast pin was a great way to go. Super fast. You can still differentiate. So you can send different activities to different students, which is wonderful. The downside is that that link is going to expire and that you don't get the student reports. And the student reports, I'm telling you, is gold. So that is something that I think you might want to really look at. So that Hyperplay, did I call that the wrong thing? No, I did. I called it the right thing. Hyperplay is where you assign it inside of Boom, and you get the student reports and the differentiated activities. So that's a wonderful way to go. So these reports are inside of Boom, and so you can kind of track student progress as they're going along. So you just go to the front of that report menu, and right in the center there is where it says report. Now I'm getting these, these images are off of the Boom website. They have wonderful training videos and walk you through everything. So I just thought, what better place to go than the source themselves? So I went ahead and did that. I just didn't want to show student data on my end. So you can kind of sort it by when this took place, when this activity was done. So you can sort that. And then when you're done, you're going to get to see how a student did. So Jimmy, probably not a real panda, but Jimmy, you can see that he did this math. It's a real generic activity called math cards. On this particular activity, there were four slides or four cards that they did. And he got 4 out of 4 correctly. And he did those in 17 seconds with 100% accuracy. So you can see exactly what's happened. I don't know if you've seen students playing games, and they're like, oh, there's a correct answer. They're on like their phone or on a computer, and they're just clicking until they get the right one. Yeah. Let me know if you've seen that before. I've seen it in my own classroom. They just keep clicking until they get the right one. This is really common in kindergarten. I imagine it's common in other places, but you can really see what the students are doing, right? You can see, are they guessing or are they thinking about each one of those. So that's one of the great things about this accountability. And then when they're done, they're going to get a little, great job thing. So 2 different students here. We have Jimmy, who got 4 out of 4. Wonderful. He can go back home or he can play it again if he wants to. And Sue, she got 3 out of 4. So she can go ahead and play it again if she could try to get that 4 out of 4. And you can also look, what I love is that you can review that time on task and mastery all in one spot. So you can see if you're comparing Jimmy and Sue, we're assuming Sam and Tim haven't gotten to this activity yet, but you can see how long did it take them. And then, if you look at mastery, you can see very quickly that Sue got 3 out of 4, right? So that's a great little area for you to check in. Love that. What else do I want to say about this? There was something else that I thought was really, really cool. This particular activity was on math facts, right? So if you have, let's say there are 20 decks in there and Jimmy spent, 15 minutes working on that, but Sue spent 2 minutes working on that. And then you can see her accuracy level. It gives you an idea of what were they doing? Were they just zipping through everything, or were they really, slowing down and thinking about it? One question that I used to get a lot when I go around and do professional development is, how do we have accountability for students? How do we show what they're doing when you're not right there with them? They're at a center activity for 20 minutes. How do we know that they were working? There's no guessing here. We know exactly what they were doing and what they were doing correctly and what they were having a problem with. Now Sue can go back and do it again. And now this time she got them all right. So she's got 4 out of 4. She's showing mastery, but you can see that she answered 8 questions there. So she's played it twice. So it just lets you know what's happening. And, of course, it's up to you whether you want to encourage students to try it again or not. But more practice is perfect, is what I would recommend, right? Because practice makes permanent. You can also download a student report. This is a great communication tool that you can use with parents. You can let them know what's going on. If you have a parent communication app, you can share that information with them as well. But you can also put it in a student portfolio. If you're doing like response to intervention and you're wanting to make sure that you have some data points, this is also a great way for you to show some data points. So that accountability report is really, really important. Okay, so some of the features, and I'm going to be showing kindergarten features, but if you're an older grade or a different grade, I want you to be thinking about how you can use this yourself, and you can build your own activities. Okay. So you don't have to go ahead and purchase something, but you can build your own. Honestly, sometimes it's cheaper just to purchase something that's out there than it is to try to think about making your own. But if you're worried about how to make them, like I said, Boom has some amazing tutorials on YouTube. That's how I learned how to make them. I just went on YouTube and watched them. And the next thing you know, I was making some. So these are, what I love about them are the recorded directions. So it's really hard when you have a set of activities, and especially in those primary grades, where students sometimes aren't sure what to do. So for this one, they're going to listen to the sound. They're going to click to listen to it, and then they'll go ahead and click on the letter that makes that sound. So it's very, very simple, simple tasks that they're going to be doing. This is where they're going to have more than one correct answer. So listen and click everything that begins with, or not begins with. Actually, these are all beginning sounds. Sorry, just takes me a minute to think if we're doing medial sounds, ending sounds. These are all beginning sounds that begins with the sound. That's the picture on the left. So they're going to click the underwear, which always makes us laugh. And then we have umpire and we have up. So they'll click all 3 of those and then check it. And then for they have ill. What do we have on there? Iguana and igloo. So they're just going to click those and then check to make sure that they're right. Also, the thing that I love is that we can have listen, drag, and then type. So this is very interactive. So oftentimes we'll have an image and like for the example of the jar, student might be like, I don't know, is that jelly? What is that? Is that a jar? Is that a jam? What is that, right? Well, it's jam. And so they can listen to it if they're not sure, and then they're going to drag, and then they're going to type it. So that's also fantastic. Here's a kind of a better view of that. So for the word kit, a student might look at that and go, I have no idea what that is, but they can click that little sound icon. It's going to read it for them. And then they're going to drag the onset and rhyme and then type it out across the top and then check it. So same idea. This is where they're going to listen to a sentence being said, and then they're going to build the sentence. So they can listen to the sentence again and again and again, and then start to build. Now, we created these activities based on the phonics scope and sequence for our science of reading units. So they're not going to have any word in there that they're not going to be able to decode. So if you look over there, we have then and with and Beth. Those are all decodable words based on the phonics that they've learned so far. And then the other words are going to be sight words. The word friend is going to be one, or read is going to be, it's going to, I'm just looking at them, like, is it read or read? I'm not sure in the sentence. It's going to be one that they're going to have to listen to and use the beginning and ending sounds to decipher that. But other than that, everything is going to be very decodable for them. So here's also a listen and drag. So they're going to listen. This one, child's using a stylus with the typing feature. And then this one is, they're going to listen to the word, it's chair, and they're going to figure out which digraph to drag in front. And then we also have like an assessment. So when they're done with this deck, there's a couple of review questions, and we're going to ask them, hey, click on the sound and then type the letter that makes that sound. Click on the word that says for. And so they're going to have to click on the correct answer. There's all kinds of boom decks out there. I just started to type this in and I realized I didn't finish typing it in, but math, science, social studies, tons of ELA, just lots of variety. If you just go into their storefront, you can see a ton. And again, you can sort those by free to see what's out there and what might fit your classroom needs. So I have a video to show you, and I'm feeling like I'm going to go ahead and play it. We are good on time, I believe. So let's go ahead and play it. Maybe. There we go.
Okay, for this deck, this is for our sight word phonics kind of review. And so these are going to actually show in the order which students would actually see them. Okay, so this tells them what to do. Speech bubble to hear the sound, and then click on the sound you hear. So here is what it says. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. So I'm going to go through and kind of show how this whole thing is set up. So we're reviewing previously learned sounds. We're doing this as part of our science of reading curriculum, but instead of it being boring drill and kill, now we have something that's highly engaging for students. They can self-monitor themselves and go back, and you'll be able to go back and see how well they've done or what kinds of areas that they are having a hard time with. So this is just reviewing. Now they're going to build this word and then type the word. Click on the sound icon, speech bubble. So oftentimes what we see when students are doing centers, they'll see a picture and they're not exactly sure what that is. Is that a jar? What is that? So they can hear it if they need to. We've recorded it there, but then these go here as well, right? And then we type it in and then they check it. So also a great way, you know, is that a bus? Is that a van? What is that? Sometimes they get confused. So now we have something that's really, really, that takes the guesswork out and students can really focus on the work. I'm going to go ahead and skip through these. You can see there's lots of review. And again, we're reviewing the lessons that have been taught so far. So I don't remember, I think this is week 13 or something like that of kindergarten. I don't remember when I clicked on it, which one it was. But this is all of the phonics that we've been practicing in our whole group science of reading, right? And so now this is an independent center. We just can extend that learning. What we do know, science of reading tells us, is that students need lots of interaction to build those neural pathways. And so this is just another way in which we're doing it, but they're not doing it alone. They have support through the recording. And then if they get the wrong answer, let's say they think that's, let's say they go like this. Oh, we don't want to make that word, this, right? And they type in dat. Oh, we got it wrong. And it tells them, you know, kind of where you need to make that change. And then we can change it here as well. And then we go forward. So I'm just going to keep going through all of these. Oops, this one is, the previous one says to hear the word. Next, drag the letters to build the word. Okay, so these, oh my goodness, I talk a lot. Okay. So I think I was talking over the top. I think it was no. So these are sight words that we've learned so far. Yeah. There's the word saw. So they're going to build these words. Now, these are words that we've done orthographic mapping for. We have worked in practice in our dictation, on and on. So this isn't the first time they're seeing it, but this is definitely a great practice for them to practice their spelling words. So are really phonics kind of driven sight words. Here's another one. Also. So the pattern that we're using is that long open syllable at the end. And let me keep going. Now we're going to build the sentence. Okay. And again, these are words that are using the sight words for the week, or words that have been reviewed, and then also kind of the spelling pattern that we're working on. So there's several sentences there. And then this is a great review. Okay. So right in here, they're going to go ahead and type. Each one of these has something different. Was. So this is a chance for us.
Okay, I'm going to stop because you can kind of get the idea of how this works. So this is one whole deck that is used as a way to extend you. So if you're familiar with the science of reading, it's really changing the way that we're teaching now. But what we know we need to do is provide students with lots of opportunities to practice the skills again and again and again. And so we do it as a whole group activity. We do it as a small group activity. But if we want to have them do a center, this is tailored to specifically, you know, kindergarten week 13 or week 14, something like that. So it's just a chance for them to practice again. And what we know we need to do for students with learning disabilities is we need to build those neural pathways within the brain. That's a whole nother webinar I could talk to you about, but this is a great opportunity. We can also use this as a warm up for our small group, right? So we can have them working on this when you're getting ready to, if you have more than, you know, if you have extra devices, that's a great opportunity for you to do is have it as a small group warm up where each student is practicing and you can be right on hand, or you can have students doing this together, like collaboratively within your small group as a way for them to practice. So just, you know, we want to make it engaging. We want to make it fun. So again, you're going to want to make sure your clip art kind of matches your audience, what is kind of engaging and fun for them. There's lots and lots of options, but really, really love how Boom makes it simple. This is like a hidden picture. And so as I'm just going to go quickly, but you can see as they answer each one, the picture becomes revealed. Okay, so I'm going to stop, but that's just another way. Let me just back up so you can kind of see. You don't need to see me finding the number 14, but maybe if you're teaching high school, maybe you have equations there instead, right? Maybe you have, I don't know, algebraic expressions. I don't know. Oh, I was just talking to somebody about me and algebra. Not a good situation. That's why I teach kindergarten for a reason, right? But you can have whatever it is that you're working on. You could have, if you're using content, maybe you have pictures on the hidden pictures that are showing me an example of, you know, a vocabulary word that you've been working on, something along those lines. You know, the creativity that's out there is amazing. If you go on to one of the things that I really love about, I'm gonna do this one, but I'm gonna make it quiet because I don't want you to necessarily I just want you to see how it works. But this is for fine motor. We're practicing that path of motion. So there's a little GIF in there that's showing them where to go. And then they're going to say the letter. This is the letter C. And then they're going to take the, so this is just the introduction showing them what to do. Go next. There we go. And then for this one, they're just going to drag that over along the path of motion. And they're going to keep doing that over and over again. So that's a great way for them to remember. One thing that I also love about Boom is that before you buy anything, you can preview the deck. When you, just so that you know, when you preview, it's going to preview, unless there's been a change, and my Boom friends can tell me, it's going to preview in the order in which the deck was built. So in this example, you know, we're going to have A, then we're going to have B, and then we're going to have C. Well, that might be good for some activities, but it's not really what we would want to do on a continual basis. So even though it previews in this way, it shuffle plays, right? You can decide as you're building a deck if you want to shuffle play it or not. For this activity, I would shuffle play. I wouldn't want to shuffle play the hidden picture, right? That needs to be in sequential order. The science of reading lessons need to be in sequential order. So just kind of something to think about when you're looking, but I mean, you get to test drive everything before you buy it. So that is kind of cool. All right. We have gotten to the end. I think, yeah, there we are. We're at the end. So let's have our hostess with the mostest come back, and I'm happy to answer some questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Deedee. That was amazing. I loved it.
Thank you.
So now I love the entire presentation. So now we want to get to know you a little bit more. So
Okay.
can you tell us a bit about your background and how you got into education?
Sure. You know what? I started off, my first career, I was a medical administrator. So I spent 20 years in the medical field managing practices, but I knew I always wanted to be a teacher. So I went back to school. I had to go in the Navy. I went in the Navy Reserves to pay for my education because we just didn't have the money to get that certificate. So I did that as Navy Reservist for 6 years. And then I got my teaching credential. My first job was teaching second grade. I taught second grade in San Diego City schools. And then we moved to Central Missouri. So I taught second grade there as well. I became the instructional coach for my district in Missouri, but I missed the classroom so much. So we may have begged, I may have like cried, please let me go back in the classroom. And they had a kindergarten opening. It was like a perfect storm. Like the teacher who was teaching kindergarten got a principal position late in the school year. So I'm like, oh, I'll do that. So I became a kindergarten teacher and I loved it. But I also missed working with teachers. You know, of course, I could still work in my classroom with my grade level, but to be able to have the outreach that I was doing before, I missed that. So I started blogging. One thing led to another. I started doing trainings, you know, all the time, all over the country. And when we moved to Colorado, I decided that it was time for me to pick. I couldn't do everything. I couldn't be in the classroom full time and travel. It was exhausting. I would get home at 2 o'clock in the morning and then get up the next morning and teach my little sweet 5 and 6 year olds. And it was just too hard. So after doing that for about 5 years, I said, okay. So when we moved to Colorado, I decided to step away from the classroom on a full-time basis. And now I do professional development and webinars. So if you like to learn in this platform and you don't really get a chance to travel around and go to a live, I'm leaving on Friday to go to do a training in Wisconsin. You know, sometimes people don't have that flexibility and they want to do something, you know, in the evening, you know, put your pajamas on, get your comfy clothes on. So I do webinars. So you can find those on my blog, sign up for something. If you're primary, there might be something there that's that might meet your interest.
That is, wow, that is amazing. I love it. And I know pretty much everyone here wants to know more and learn from your webinars. So
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we have also, what is unique about teaching in small groups and learning centers compared to traditional classroom teaching?
Well, I mean, I think there's some very unique opportunities. One of them is that you can give students a second look at a skill. You know, we teach a skill in whole group, and some students need to see that skill 6 or 7 times and they have that mastered. So let's just say we're talking about a certain, let's just say we're talking about phonics, beginning sounds, right? You're going to have about 60% of the population is going to be able to see it 6 or 7 times and they're going to have mastery. They'll be able to see it and encode it and decode it. But there's 40% of the population that need to see it more often. 20% of the population has a language-based learning disability, y'all. It's huge. That's a huge population. And then that between that 40% have some shades of that, right? And so they don't need to see something different. They just need to see it more. So they need to still practice those letters and sounds, but they just need to see it again and again and again. And so we need to build those pathways for them. And small group is a perfect opportunity. Oftentimes when students are not learning in a whole group setting, there's a lot of things that could be going on. There could be a language-based learning disability. There could be some attention issues. There could be some overwhelm. And what doesn't work for students is getting angry with them, right? So if students are not learning, we have to change our instruction. And so we're not going to change the student. We're not going to get them to kowtow to us, right? We need to make sure that we bring the learning to them. And so doing that in small group is a wonderful opportunity. You're able to really contextualize things differently. You can bring in different types of multi-sensory things that you wouldn't want to try to attempt in your whole group. For example, sandboxes. Like there's not enough money in the world for me to give 20 sandboxes to my classroom to use. I mean, no, nobody wants to do that. But in small group, you can do that. And again, if you are limited on devices, this would be a great opportunity. If you don't want to have them in center time, you want to use them in small group, that's also a great opportunity to use those. So it's not doing something, we don't want to teach them something different. We just want to give them more exposure and maybe present it in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that gives them like hands-on learning.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that. And that also, I had another question related, and is, do you use any other resources along boom cards, like you mentioned, like the sandbox or worksheet, puzzles?
Yeah. Well, I think we are in a time in our, I certainly know the teachers that I work, we have a really large Facebook group that I talk to teachers a lot. And when we got to the end of last year, I was just certain because everybody had to do digital. They were going to have another year because they saw how easy it was. And there was a little bit of a pushback. I think teachers were like, I don't want to see any more digital for some of them. For others, they wanted to have a balance. Here's what I think the right answer is. It's definitely a balance. The boom decks are really just a way to multiply you, right? Because you can give immediate feedback for students. If they get something wrong, they get immediate feedback, right? It multiplies you. There's never enough instruction we're always shorthanded, right? So why would we not want to have that? But we don't want to just have that. There are other things. We need to make sure that we're still doing pencil to paper activities, that we're still doing things where they're moving their large muscles and small muscles. So would we have a steady diet of digital? No, I sure hope not. Not 100%. We need to make sure that we have a balance of those because our fine motor skills really are linked to the way the brain processes. That writing is such an important skill. If you would have asked me in 2015 if handwriting was important, I would have said no. I would have said no because we're all working on devices. We're typing. We're we don't need to really master letter formation. However, research is telling us, or research is telling researchers, and I've read the reports, that that path of motion that students do to do letters really helps ingrain it into their brain. So we need to make sure that we don't remove that, right? And we give them lots of different ways to get information in and get information out, not just technology, but not just paper pencil either. And not worksheets. Y'all don't do worksheets. We don't want to do those, but we want to make sure we have hands-on learning that's both, paper kind of tasks or card kind of tasks, and then also digital.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you that because I know you are super creative. We can see in all your social and your blog that you do like so many activities. And so you also create your own boom cards. So that's why I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite thing about creating your own boom cards for your students?
You know, I think I get more excited than a person should about clip art. Like I probably need medication. Like it's bad. I have so many clip art images, but I get really excited when I see something really kind of cute and engaging or funny, or so I love thinking of different ways to make that really creative. So when I think about boom decks, I think of them as layers. You know, of course, we look at them like this and we see things, but we have to think about them in layers. So we have to have the background image, and then we have to have the images on top that can move around, but the background images need to have a place to type things. You know, so there's lots of different layers to that. And I really love doing that. If you were asked me to draw a picture, it would be bad. It would be bad. I'm like, my drawing skills are just lame, period, in a story. But I do love, I know when I see it, I love the way it turns out. And so I get really excited about that. So, you know, whether it's a digital resource or print resource, I really love creating resources for teachers. I also love creating solutions. So when I'm thinking about, I've always kind of done that when I see it, when I'm working with a student and I'm seeing that point of difficulty, I'm thinking, what can I give them that's going to make this learning fun and engaging, but also is going to teach them what they need to know, right? And so I always kind of, when people ask me, how did you get into making things? I've always made my own games. I've just gotten better on a computer, and their clip art's gotten better and better. And I have more fonts than any person should either. But I love that solution of how can I make something that's going to be very engaging for students, something that's not out there right now. You know, I know that there's lots of people creating things. I try to create things that aren't, what's missing? If I can find it, I'll buy it. But if it's not there, that's what I like to do. I like to come up with that thing that's not there, you know?
Yeah. And also about that, have you noticed any preferences that your students show for certain like type of boom cards, like the one that you mentioned before, the hidden image or another type of activities?
Yeah. I mean, the hidden image they really like, because they kind of like start to guess as, oh, I wonder what this is going to be and when this is going to be. You know, you wouldn't want to give them hidden image over and over again. So give them some and then give them some other kind of, so the variety I think is really, really important. They really love the ones that have the gifts in it. So some clip arts have made some really cute ones where, you know, you have some we have one that we did for, now I'm wondering if I put the GIF in that, but for holidays around the world. So they had different like kind of little actions that they were doing. I don't know if it's that one or maybe another one, but my kids lost their mind. They're like, this is amazing. You know, it's just a little, that novelty thing that they love to see. If I did every activity with a GIF, is it a GIF or a GIF? I don't know. But if I had one every single time, no, but you will want to make sure we have that novelty in there. So that they're like, oh my gosh, look I can see how to form that letter. That's what, you know, that's what we want to make sure that we have something there that makes them say, hey, I need to pay attention to this. So that's, I think, what I like.
That's amazing. And related to that, like, what can you do to create boom cards? We have a question in the Q&A box. So we have Ellie put in there here. I create boom cards for primary. I recently retired. I'm just wondering, when students are at centers, is audio helpful, or is it better keeping it independent with no audio? So I know a lot of teachers add audio to the boom cards, like Joan. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, and Ellie may have asked that question before I showed my video, but hopefully she can see how adding that audio now all of a sudden takes it from to a whole new level of thinking, right? So we want to make sure that we maximize the level of thinking. And so when we can add it, so they have to listen and then select, it just adds a little deeper learning in that activity. It also is really helpful for students who sometimes are like, I don't know how to do this. I don't, you know, so that would be definitely, you know, a support for them. I know some teachers like to use earbuds for classroom. I prefer not to. I think that we can really be fine with teaching them how to have it low enough that they can hear and it's not blasting across the classroom. Also, we don't have to worry about any kind of hearing issues as well. So those earbuds are just a whole nother level of pain to me. I never use them. I never use them for our listening center. I never use them for devices. So, I mean, the only issue, oh, here comes my dogs. They're coming in. If the only issue is if you have everybody doing it at the same time, then it becomes hard. But if you have 5 or 6 iPads going, again, designate those areas in your classroom so that they're not all sitting together, right? And that will definitely help them.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, that also can help you to multiply yourself, because you can add those, like the audio for instructions, and then you don't keep repeating the same thing.
I know. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Boom just keeps getting, and I'm not just saying this because it's you guys, but Boom just keeps getting better and better. It really has gotten better and better. You know, I've seen so many improvements. So I don't know. I just,
there are more coming up.
and there are more coming. I know, always changing. So, Christy's asking the best way to have you found to have kids log in. Do you print out the QR codes or use Google Classroom or another method? I just had those that log in on the device for them. So it's right there. You know, keep that login short if you can, because it definitely, you know, when you're kindergarten, that's hard. It's hard, but you know, I don't know about y'all, but I've seen kids like take something from an adult and say, let me just do that for you, mom, because they can do things, right? And so it's just a matter of investing some time in teaching them how to do it. But mercy, I mean, they're like, trying to find, I was watching this 3-year-old finding a YouTube video, and I was like, how on earth did they find it that fast? You know, me, I'm still, you know, going through my makeup tutorials to find the video I wanted to have on something for school. So yeah, I think
don't underestimate them.
do not underestimate them. Even though it's hard at first, it is hard, especially kindergarten. It's like wading through mud, or they say herding cats. But it's time invested. It's well spent. So yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good way to go.
Yeah, perfect. And we have one more, and it's some suggestions for short transition songs. This is about what you talked in the beginning.
Yeah. So, you know, it depends on your grade level. But what I loved, and I'm glad that you're excited about that. What I love though, is Jack Hartman was my favorite. Jack Hartman has been around forever, and he has these, it's called rock and roll nursery rhymes. They're absolutely goofy and silly, but my class loved them. And what I did was I loaded all of those songs onto my computer, and I had them in media player so I could see exactly how long each song was. And so I had my small group. My computer was behind me. I'm working with small group. And when I realized it's time for them to clean up, I would just turn around, select a song, finish up with my group. Meanwhile, everybody's cleaning up. It's like whirlwind behind me of everybody's cleaning up. And it was lovely. I never had to say, and you know, sometimes we have students who don't transition well, right? We have some students that transition triggers them. This does not trigger my students. I never had a student. I've had students on the spectrum, students diagnosed with autism. This was not something that ever, because it's fun. They're singing it, they're going. And so it's not, you know, it's such a positive way to move students from place to place. In fact, we did it for a whole day. I said, my class, we're going to use transitions for the whole day just to see what happens, songs. And we had like 25 minutes at the end of the day. We're like, whoa, we got through everything that was on my lesson plan, which actually never happens, right? You get everything on your lesson plan, and I still had time left over. So try that. I think you'll like it.
That's amazing. So I think that is it. Oh my God, I can keep on going for hours. I love talking with you, Deedee. This webinar was amazing.
Thank you.
So yeah, but this is the end of it. So
yeah, you know what I wanted to say too was talking about students can also have picture passwords, so that will make it easier for them. Yeah. So I just wanted, in case people aren't looking at the chat, I wanted to make sure everybody saw that, because that's really great as well.
Yeah, and we have an intro to boom learning next week. So if you want to learn more about picture password and QR code and all of that, you can join us next week to learn more. So thank you again, Deedee. This was amazing. For everyone who wants to look at it again, you can watch it on our YouTube channel. We'll be uploading this recording. And so please, please, please fill out our feedback form. You can tell us any comments about Deedee or the presentation, and we'll send those to her. Thank you. So,
all right, thanks everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Bye-bye.